Thank you all very much for being here. I probably see about 25 empty chairs in here, so if anybody in the other room or that's standing would like to sit down, we have about 15 chairs over here, maybe 5 here to my left, so feel free, don't worry, I'll try not to get distracted if you're walking in. I prefer that you're comfortable and able to pay attention, have an open heart and open mind. So please come on in to my left and to my right. There's chairs, most of them are to my right. It's an honor to be here, but I'm not happy to be here. To grow up in a country where abortion on demand has been a reality since I was born shouldn't make anybody happy. Hearing what the pro-abortion demonstrators said today and say daily is offensive to the intellect and breaks my heart and should break all of our hearts. It was early on in my acting career and in my Hollywood lifestyle that I experienced the world of compromise. You know, where appealing or going out and auditioning for a role in a film made it somehow worth lying, cheating, or stealing in order to get that role. Where the I was supreme, no matter the cost. However, death to another was inconceivable. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said since the decision of Roe versus Wade. It's one of the greatest errors when we make things more important than people. We have become blind to what truly matters when this happens. When we speak of the endeavors and possible accomplishments that one might have, and that those possibilities would dictate whether a child lives or dies, is a travesty. A clear example is when a politician of high position said they wouldn't want their daughter to be punished with a child. Our president. Because of Roe v. Wade, and understandable that abortion would happen before this, but that opened the floodgates. And since then, we've become a nation with blood-stained college degrees, bank accounts, trophies, athletic accomplishments, vehicles, you name it. And why? Because too often, babies have been torn from their mother's wombs and blood drained from their precious bodies in order for their mommies and daddies to carry on living as they were, in order to protect the bank account, to pursue an education, athletic dreams, or career. But they don't go living on as they were. Business does not run as usual. Abortion strikes right at the heart of femininity and masculinity. This should be the greatest opposition of feminists. It attacks at the great life-bearing ability that belongs to humanity. It erodes the human spirit, and it cannot be undone unless intense and proactive healing is sought. Very thankful that, and unfortunate that this has to exist, but very thankful for ministries like Martha's Vineyard and Rachel, all of the Rachel's Vineyard and these apostolates that go to heal the hearts of men and women that have been affected by abortion. But peace cannot be achieved in a nation's political buildings, and even less in our homes, when what should be the safest place on earth becomes a battleground where the main player is given the least of importance, a baby. May the words of the song Amazing Grace come alive by our presence here today. Here in Lincoln, in our homes, and in our political circles. That we may say, I once was lost, but now I'm found, for the case of life. I once was blind, but now I see. Because it truly must be grace. Philosophical grace, scientific grace, or theological grace. To change the heart and mind to a conviction that promotes, and like I said today, you could hear in their voices, rejoices in the death of innocent children, and piercing the hearts of mothers and fathers. A true grace must happen in order for them to, like many have, like Abby Johnson, who was a director of one of the Planned Parenthoods in the United States, to come to the other side, to the side for life, to protect life in all of its stages and forms. Regardless of diagnosis, regardless of potential issues in the womb, life is sacred. And the doctor who proclaims the words, I think we should abort, it takes a grace for him to realize that he has the gift of life. And no education and no training should dictate whether another person has the same right. History is marred with the Holocaust, with concentration camps, with slave labor, with child labor in this country, fighting for political revolutions, for the right for women to vote. We have consistently had the call for social revolution, and we have stood up to that. And now I feel like I'm part of some institution called pro-life, like we're going to be here to stay. I don't want to keep getting together. I don't want to keep having these marches. We shouldn't have to have the websites and the information and sort of this, hey, I'll see you again next year at the march. No, I hope I don't see you next year. Not in this situation. I mean, certainly, I'd love to see you in other circumstances. But this is the worst circumstance that we have to get together with. And yes, I have run into friends. Yes, I love to meet others who rejoice in the case of life. So I do enjoy being here. But the mission, the reason we're here, it's a funeral. 57 million human beings. And some people will get more fired up when they see a missile cross over a river to land in another country, and they say, oh, and they'll fight to the death to say, but what about the innocent? Yes, what about the innocent in all circumstances? At least the news is showing the rocket going over. But where is the news today? 600,000 people in my home city, Washington, D.C. last week. Where was the media? Half that shows up for any other cause, and you'll hear about it all day. It'll be in the news cycle. Being pro-life should be at the heart of all of humanity in how it treats those that are different than us. I've had to deal with something really trivial in my life over the last several months. My neighbor has a really annoying dog. And he barks, 7 a.m. They'll put him outside and just bark. And right near my window, and bark consistently. I've called and I've laughed and said, oh, just wanted to let you know your dog's outside looking for something. Can I go over? Can I play? They call me back and say, don't call me. I'm within my legal right. So, what did I do? I looked up on the website for the county to understand what the heck she's talking about. I do landscaping on occasion, and I've had people run out and say, you're 8 o'clock, what are you doing? I'm trying to have a glass of wine. It smelled like they had several. And they were telling me, you should be quiet, those lawnmowers, you can't even see, it's dark. And I said, you're absolutely right, it's really dark. and I just finished working. You're right, it's ridiculous I'm out here. Legally, I'm allowed to be here till 9. Yeah, but we know you, we saw you grow up. You're right, and I'm sorry that it was loud, it was annoying. But I didn't tout how it was my legal right to be there. So I looked up and it said that you can make business noise at 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. So my neighbor lets the dog out at 7 a.m. Then I realized that there's something called a noise ordinance. And at no such time can anything that's considered a nuisance be allowed to persist. And I said, aha! So I called the cops. And I knew I was going to go to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life, shirts, pro-life, by the way, we sell them over at our table. And I knew I was going to come to Nebraska, and I would see my neighbor, and harbor non-life thoughts for the dog, and non-life thoughts for the neighbor. And I realized I was being inconsistent. I realized this was a problem. We think that being pro-life means being against abortion. No, I am pro-life and I'm against abortion. Pro-life is an understanding that I have to have this understanding of life even towards my own mother and father, my little brother and sister, the neighbor's dog. And yes, this is very consistent and it's very common for us, those that are Christian, because we hear about it. It is the golden rule. It's to love our neighbors. But it's not only a Christian ideal. When my other neighbor to the other side of my house, their wife is ill at 87, in a wheelchair, hospice is there, pro-life enters there in its understanding of the dignity of human life until its natural end. I watched as the grandchildren struggled when they would come to stay and visit and move from Boston. As they seemed exhausted, they wished it would end. And I thought how easy it is to just ask the nurse to possibly use an injection and just put mom to sleep. Let her rest in peace. The problem is that we take a Burger King attitude. Have it your way attitude. The drive-through understanding of, I just want it and I want it fast and I want to go and somehow I want it to not have all the calories it does have. To say, I want it my way. I want to just go to work on a normal basis. I want to not have to trade in my car and get a smaller car because the medical bills are piling up. To play God because real life becomes uncomfortable is such an American and now becoming an international fad. Where abortion is seen as a solution, where euthanasia, where countries are allowing children up to the age of 2 years old to be killed if there is some sort of situation or problem with them, even the disapproval of parents just due to behavior. Thank God my wife doesn't have that right. Thank goodness most of our wives don't have that right. If because somebody's a nuisance or annoying or difficult to live with, to say that we should fight for a law that allows for this, and say, oh, the law is intended for extreme cases. Yeah, but wait a few years. It will be used for ordinary cases. I discovered in the last 2 weeks with that neighbor and that dog that I had to be pro-life in all aspects, even in my thoughts and in my heart. Even with my son, who cannot communicate, he's 1 year old, can't communicate to me, tell me what he wants except for by screaming. And I've thought about it in some of the stressful moments. What if I lived in a country where this was popular and okay to just say, you know what, I'm going to send him over to the doctor and, instead of Tamiflu, I'm going to give him something and we're going to start over. There is no start over with human life. There's chapter 2. The families that have come to me and told me that these are their children and that they had abortions before. It breaks their heart to watch them cry, and they realize, I thought I was going to start over and say, well, I'm in college, so right now, abortion is my option, and I'm just going to have that same child when I'm ready. There's a college in Washington, D.C., George Washington University. My cousin just graduated from there, and I missed the commencement. So they said, hey, you can watch it on YouTube. We sat down with the family, put it on. And there was a famous chef in Washington, D.C. who gave the commencement speech. And there were so many things that I loved about his speech. It was just this last school year. And he said, before I learned how to be a boyfriend, I became a husband. Before I learned how to be a husband, I became a father. And I thought, how true. We have this idea that when I'm ready, that's when I'll go ahead and do the things that I want to do. So I got to wait till my finances are in order and even to get married. So we'll be engaged for 6, 7, 8 years. Or to say, I'm going to wait till I'm done with school. My girlfriend or young wife is pregnant. We're going to finish until I graduate. I wasn't ready to be a father. I didn't have it all together to even be a husband. But that is when you say, this is what we have. A child doesn't show up 9 months later. The child showed up before you even knew. Typically, a minimum of 5 weeks. Most women are with child before even realizing that they have missed the cycle that tells them that they're infertile. 5 weeks. That's how far along my wife and I were when we walked into a free clinic to find out if she had missed her period and to find out if we were parents before we were husband and wife. A child was already, well, to us, potentially there. We didn't realize it. We walked in, we went to that part of town where there's a lot of free clinics. It wasn't in the part of town I lived in. It's very interesting that places like this, it was not a Planned Parenthood, by the way, it was part of a Lutheran hospital. And I thought, okay, here we are, without insurance, want to figure out if we're pregnant or not. Where do we go? We had to go to a place where the free clinic, walked in, and I realized for the first time I experienced sitting in a chair inside of a type of building that I'm normally standing outside of. Always wondering what it's like in there. Always wondering what I would have to do to be able to walk in and kind of understand, quote unquote, my enemy. When I'm standing out, 40 Days for Life, doing prayer vigils, holding a sign, with my rosary beads, with 2 signs, sometimes with a bullhorn. I was on the other side. And I sat there not knowing what to expect, which is the experience of so many men that if they're brave enough to be there with their girlfriends. Someone, possibly a nurse, hopefully a nurse, said, yeah, just come on back, let's talk. Didn't realize that it took 30 seconds to do a urine test, and they walked out and she just smiled. Nervously smiling. And I was recording this in my mind thinking, so this is what it's like. For young men and young women that are typically at a place called Planned Parenthood. She came out, and the woman said, yes, you're 5 weeks pregnant. My wife couldn't even say that. She was just kind of so full of joy mixed with how is this going to be received? And I just jumped up thrilled and thought, where is everyone standing outside? How come no one's standing in this parking lot of the strip mall holding signs saying, we love you, choose life, we can help, don't do it? Thankfully, I wasn't at a place that performed abortions, but there's not a big difference sometimes. We don't realize that some of these places that are free clinics that offer pregnancy tests for free are also abortion facilities. And I thought, wow,
how important it is that you all are doing the work that you do when you go out to an abortion facility. And you're there demonstrating love, options, choices, counseling, conversation. Thank goodness I was a theology student at the time, a pro-life activist at the time, knew enough that I rejoiced when I was in the chair finding out. I was excited because I knew life had already begun and that I was given a responsibility by God, and better than a responsibility, an opportunity to embark on the greatest journey that fame, fortune, and romance could never offer. To be a father, to be a dad. To now have myself staring at me in the face and to love myself when they're being annoying. And I might not want to love my own child. That is a reflection of my own image. Realizing that this is a great test of life. Love. True love. So I embraced her, we hugged, I just thought it was so awesome. And then I feared the words of what the nurse might say next. There was no smile on her face, by the way. Not at all. And I realized, wow. Life is no longer a subject of rejoicing. It is now a terribly political, slippery slope. It's now suddenly, I don't want to say congratulations, because what if they're going to take care of it through abortion? You know, abortion belongs with YouTube. You know why? Because when I upload a video and it doesn't work, YouTube says your upload has been aborted. Yeah, that makes sense. The mission has been aborted. That makes sense. It's a military term. It's a term of technological error. It is never appropriate to use that term for a human life. Thank you. When I'm sick, I look for a place called a clinic. That is where you go to get well, to get medical information, not to get dead. That is a facility. I understand it's uncomfortable for our neighbors to hear us ever say an abortion facility, or an abortion mill, or a child-killing plant. But please don't call it a clinic. It is not a clinic. A clinic is where there's a doctor who is bound by the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm. Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to your neighbor. It is the killing of innocent children. As Mother Teresa said, if you don't want them, give them to me. I don't know how I'd make it happen, but give them to me. I'm a missionary. I do landscaping on the side, and I coach people to use alternative health using essential oils to keep wellness going. That, I just get by. When I hear on the news, as I heard 2 weeks ago, the new polls are out, and the studies say that, and I don't know the numbers, I'm just going to throw out some big numbers, but having a child now is going to cost the average American $137,000 a year, and in their lifetime, $897,000. These are the latest polls, and I thought, wow, why would I want to have a child? If this is what my culture is telling me, I'd be freaked out in college or high school if my girlfriend, if my young wife, we found out we're pregnant. I'd be freaked out by these numbers. The culture that we live in is a culture of convenience, of I. Our national anthem should be, I did it my way. But that is not what we were founded on. You know what's sad? You know who I feared the most when we were pregnant outside of wedlock? Christians. And in my church, my fellow Catholic Christians. Because I knew this was the wrong way to do it. It's not the ideal way. It's not God's way. I feared telling Christians whose God is love, whose God is Father. I feared telling good-willed people who stand in front of pro-life clinics, facilities, excuse me. I also fall into that bad habit. I feared telling them because perhaps a greater problem was now facing me. Hey, you did it the wrong way. Sex outside of marriage, this is a sin. And somehow that would justify taking care of my situation so that I can maintain a good public figure. To hell with good public figures. When it costs a child a life, it belongs in the fires of hell. We are here to proclaim life. To be restored in the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, in our political circles, in our churches. Life is the most sacred gift we have. And no friendship or fellowship, regardless of creed, regardless of prestige, is more important than the gift of life. Yet here I was. You know, Garth Brooks has a song, "Thank God for Unanswered Prayers." And gosh, I love that. How often we pray, oh, don't let it be me. Oh, I mean, yes, I love all children, especially if, oh, my neighbor, oh, they have autism, they have Down syndrome, they have multiple sclerosis, they have so many things. Oh, love it, don't let it happen to me. I said something a long time ago, and it's weird to have it in my heart, but I would be blessed if God gave me that gift. And it might not have been my prayer throughout my life. But time and time again, the best families that I find are the ones that have someone who's special needs. We're all special needs, but to have somebody that is all special needs is a greater blessing. When it's dinner time, you don't find the kids always plastered up on Nintendo or the, say, 360 or whatnot. They're helping out their sibling with special needs. In families where this is a situation, you find greater love, greater humanity. Why would I want Harvard to be the degree my child got if it created a heart that was lifeless? A bank account that was fruitless? A marriage that was heading towards the brick wall of divorce and hatred and division and law and lawsuits? And why would I want, oh God, give me this, when the greatest blessing that could come might come in the form of rain or snow or special needs? God is a God who gives. He doesn't take away. So whatever comes into your life, God's given it to you. The question is, what are you going to do with it? We want to always find a cure or a solution, and it's created a very self-centered country. And I was a product of the very popular thing of that kind of movement, which was to be an actor, to be a celebrity, to be famous. I was never more lonely. I was never in my life more self-centered, critical, negative. I mean, just all the bad things, and yet I was at the top and would get fan mail, and everyone thought I was the bomb. And I realized, wow, the end of the life of Robin Williams, the end of the life of so many actors, why does it end in despair? Because the world that focuses on fame, fortune, and romance is so often lifeless. And unfortunately, the statistics will show oftentimes has an abortion somewhere in its past. And drug abuse and alcohol abuse and pornography oftentimes are things that they think are solutions to heal a broken heart. Because abortion and the killing of innocent children does affect and hurt mommies and daddies. Because that's what they were. That's what they were. And forever they will be the mommy and daddy. And perhaps at the end of life, when they're sitting in the room with a slideshow and the video of their lives, they will be shown the trailer of the life that ended and what could have been. And they will be purged by the fires of love to sorrow and to weep and mourn for what is, because every child from the moment of conception has an eternal soul. And that child, whether you like it or not, will be there to greet you. or to say, I wish you were here. I'm sorry, you won't be with me. I have wished my whole life that you wouldn't go where you're going now, to that terrible place. But you did have the right to choose in life, constantly. And you didn't choose God's way. You didn't choose the way of life, the way of love. In your taxes, in chastity, in marriage, in fidelity, in business, you didn't choose time and time again. So when God shows up and you've got 2 doors before you, you've already gotten into the habit of choosing you. So that's what eternity is going to be spent with, is just you. And when all is said and done, that's not typically the best place to be. Alone. Humanity is not designed to be alone. Adam wasn't in the garden by himself. We are created to be bound in community, of service, to a relationship of, thou, what can I do for you? How can I help you? How can I serve you? That is the politician's priority, is how can I serve you who put me here? That is what is a father's priority, is how can I serve you that I brought here? To a wife that I bound myself in holy matrimony to say, how can I serve you? My life radically changed when I came to understand the word of service. And now there's people making millions in PR because they learn that it is a human quality to want to be served. An Asian airline totally revamped their customer service, and when you get off the plane, they say, thank you for allowing us to serve you. Take it into your business. Take it into your homes. We have to be a people of service. This is the human purpose, to serve. And those of you who have come to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior said it himself. I have not come to be served, I've come to serve. So go forth and do the same. I'm sorry that we are here gathered today. But we have to serve truth above all things. Just because a political, democratic country's law says that I should be obliged to pay for abortions, that I should be obliged to support abortion, the death of innocent children, that is not the highest law of the land. Slavery was a law. It was allowed, and people stood up against a law to say this is not fair, and they weren't popular because of it. But we are now in an uncomfortable situation, and thank God for that unanswered prayer, because it is going to create heroes. It constantly creates saints. It creates people who are extraordinary, because we don't live in ordinary times. We don't want ordinary times. We don't want ordinary families. We get comfortable in the ordinary. We kick back and relax in the ordinary. Extraordinary is what everybody wants for their children. They don't want you to just be an ordinary student, to be an ordinary athlete. We always want what's best, and we always want you to be better. Humanity is always better when we feel the pressure of oppression, of discrimination, of injustice, because we rise up and say, this is not okay, and I'm going to do something about it. I'm not here because I am the champion of the pro-life generation. I'm not here because I am the perfection of humanity. I'm here because I have swum in the river of failure, of self-doubt, of criticism, of mistakes, of sin. And I have not quit. I have not stopped. I have kept on going. And I will keep on going. And nothing will hold me back. As we heard today, talking about the river breaking through stone, I've been to the Grand Canyon, and you realize it is not, as was said, thank you for saying that, it is not the power of the water that cuts through stone, it is the persistence. And being a Christian, I always thought once I said yes to Jesus Christ and made him my personal Lord and Savior, that I would be cruising down the road to perfection. Wow, was I wrong. And a lot of people quit. And I'm not a quitter. I'm not going to quit. You can't quit. We have to continually take the message of life from these halls out into the world. And let me give you an example of how to do that. Last week, at the March for Life, I thought about, well, we're all gathered together, 600,000, this is awesome, we're cool, this is great. And it's the them that are standing up on the corner, up near the Capitol, up near the Supreme Court. Oh, we're all against them. When I get home, a mother of 2 children has a discussion with me and says, you know, I never realized, but I've had 3 abortions. The doctor told me to take this pill called Plan B, emergency birth control, so people think, you know, it'll prevent birth. Said I didn't realize. The doctor said, I said, how do I know it'll work? And they said, well, there'll be a lot of blood flow. And they said, you know, I never realized it. On 3 occasions, I had heavy blood flow after taking this pill. 3 babies. From a Christian, a pro-lifer. I gotta tell you something. In this room is who we need to be evangelizing. Because we're so involved. Yet sometimes when the decision comes and we get scared, bad decisions are made amongst those in our own ranks. I'm telling you, within, what do they call it, 7 something, the Kevin Bacon, what is it, 7 degrees of separation? You all here, within 2 degrees of friendship, family relationship, there is an abortion. And there will be another one. And you could say something to change that. 2 degrees of separation, meaning it's somebody you know or it's somebody that you know that they know. So tell people that you went to the march, you went to the walk. Tell them something about being pro-life. Speak about this to the people that you would think, well, they're part of the same team. Talk about it. Show them an amazing picture of a child in the womb. Show them the beauty of 6 weeks, 12 weeks later after conception. Share with them about the fingernail growth, the fingerprint, the heartbeat, the movement, the kicking. Share with them something. Act like it's brand new information to you and it's amazing. Because when people show me and talk to me like that about grandma's apple pie, I want grandma's apple pie. Because you act like it's amazing. Talk to somebody that way about life. Tell them, wow, you know, I've been going to these March for Life for so long. And man, look at this picture. Show them. Share with them. People need to know that you are a lifeguard. Because someone's going to be drowning in the world of self-doubt, in the world of concern, and oh my gosh, my degree, my bank account, my family. Forget all of that. Life has come to your home, or to your neighbor's home, or to your neighbor's friend's home. And they need to know that there's a lifeguard out there, because these days we have silenced people who have courage. All in the face of being invited to the barbecue. All in the face of being okay and popular. We've got to share the message of life in our own families. Because our daughters and sons will be in the high school locker room. And they will hear, they will be closer to the battlefield than you and I may ever be. Because their friend may be dealing with that situation of choosing, having the horrible choice of killing my child, my baby, my boy or my girl, my future Beethoven, my future Mother Teresa, my future politician, my future Picasso, never knowing what could come from that life that already exists. Our children need to know what to say and to speak up. Don't be afraid to take this home, even in your own marriage. There is healing that is most likely needed because our culture has been a culture of death. And without even realizing it, good people people of goodwill have unfortunately chosen, even at its most minute level, against life without knowing it. So we got to pray for those that fight against us and say horrific things, like I hope she aborts, not realizing that, wow, what if I had that attitude towards you right now? I don't find you agreeable. I don't find you convenient. Yet you are protected by the law, and that law needs to be applied to every single human being from the moment of conception until natural death. Life should never come to an end, but my time with you has. God rewards you for all of your fighting, for your words, your work, your sacrifice. And remember that it is in sacrifice that we have received the greatest gift of divine life, of eternal life. And every single one of us, regardless of what we believe about the afterlife, about who has the words of eternal life, I gotta tell you, we need heroes. We need champions. And in this room, every single one of you is being asked by me, I beg you, be not afraid. Be not afraid to go out into the world. Be not afraid to speak about this to wives, to husbands, to children, to in-laws. I know the daughter-in-laws, you never want to talk to them about stuff like this. But share the message of life in a way that's like grandma's apple pie. That's like the Bahamas, because when you talk about those things, people are like, wow, really? Oh, your car is that amazing. Go get the power seats. We talk about things in such an advertising way, but we don't want to talk about the most important thing. Life. Liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Liberty and the pursuit of happiness cannot happen if we don't secure the right to life. So let's go out there and keep doing what you're doing. Do it.